It might be Thursday, but day one of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is complete, and it's Red Bull not on top again. Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin are currently the duo to beat. From RacingNews365.com, my name is Nick Golding, and joining me as always to discuss the biggest talking points on and off the circuit is none other than lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, I'm starting to get used now to having F1 on a Thursday. At 42 years old, there is no slowing down Fernando Alonso, it seems.
Quite impressive. At least it was a decent day for them. But, Mike Crack, the Aston Martin team principal, was in the team principal's press conference run by the FIA this afternoon, or this evening, should I say, here in Jeddah. And he made it quite clear that he knows his team is only the fifth best at present on the grid. That emerged out of Bahrain, as we saw. So, Fernando Alonso is not going to be pulling the wool over anybody's eyes here today with that FP2 time. We know there's going to be more to come from those around him, especially, of course, Max and Red Bull. So, yes, while it's good for Aston Martin, enjoy it while it lasts, but it's definitely more to come from the others, that's for sure.
Behind Alonso today in P2 was George Russell, who actually went quite well on the opening day of Bahrain. As for his teammate Lewis Hamilton, a bit of a disappointing day, ended up in P8, but obviously with him, the big controversy was his trip to the stewards after FP2 for impeding Logan Sargent at turn 10. The verdict is in, and Mercedes have been fined €15,000. It's, you spoke to me beforehand. What do you make of these kind of penalties when it's obviously the driver who is basically at fault for not getting out of the way, but it's the team who get fined?
Sorry, Nick. I've never understood it, to be honest, with the driver on track. He's the one in control of his car. He's the one looking in the mirrors, looking around him. I guess why the team does get that kind of penalty is because they also have information as to where other cars are around their drivers on track, and they should have given Lewis, I'm assuming, fair warning as to the fact that Logan Sargent on this occasion was on a flying lap. The suggestion from Lewis was that he did have somebody on his inside, and he was looking to get out of the way of that particular car, but without appreciating that Logan was doing his flyer in practice. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Team half a dozen, Lewis the other half a dozen, as to who should be doing what on track at any given time when it comes to those kind of penalties. So I guess that's why you can say Mercedes has copped it on this occasion rather than Lewis.
Now, Verstappen ended the day in P3, and Sergio Perez, he obviously won in Saudi Arabia last season, was P5. We saw in Bahrain that when it comes to race trim, Red Bull are untouchable. But obviously, the circuit in Jeddah is very difficult to overtake. We saw that last year in particular. Given that Mercedes have clearly got a strong car, at least over one lap here this weekend, the same as Aston Martin. We know Ferrari always seem to perform in qualifying. Do you think that despite the fact that Red Bull do likely still have the edge when it comes to race pace, that if the Ferraris, the Astons and the Mercs can get amongst Red Bull in qualifying, then actually it might not be that easy for Max on Saturday or for Checo?
I'm going to remind you of last year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix when Max Verstappen started from 15th from the grid.
Well, yeah, he was the only one overtaking.
Well, there you go. You've answered your own question pretty much. He started from 15th and finished second. I remember at the end of that race, I questioned Christian Horner and said, shouldn't he have won that? And he looked at me quizzically and thought, what? That was a brilliant performance. But we know what that RB19 was capable of, and Max was absolutely on fire that particular day in that Grand Prix. He loves this circuit. He really does. And I'm not expecting anything other than, even if he's not on pole position, I'm not expecting anything other than a Max Verstappen race victory. I know that's doom and gloom already for those that want a bit of intrigue, want a bit of spice on track. But the way that RB20 performed at the hands of Max last Saturday in Bahrain, it doesn't really lend itself to anything other than another similarly dominant performance on Friday and on Saturday this weekend in Jeddah.
Now, of course, we aren't ignoring the off-track headlines. We want to talk about the on-track stuff first. So we will come back to what's happened off the circuit today, which has dominated world news. Carlos Sainz, I want to talk about him quickly because he's been a bit of a poorly boy. He obviously left his media duties yesterday because he was feeling unwell, and still, at least on TV, looked pretty rough today. I can't imagine that, feeling ill and driving a Formula One car at one of the most challenging circuits on the calendar is particularly fun. How rough has he actually been today?
It was so rough that he was actually very touch and go for getting in the car. It was a very late call coming from him to say, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go. We all know, well, many of us probably know what it's like when you've got a very dodgy tummy and yeah, things aren't good in that department. And for him to get through it, of course, he is an athlete. At the end of the day, he will be at the at the peak of his physical fitness. Nearly got my words muddled up there. The peak of his physical.
Long
Yeah, I
days,
know
fine.
exactly. The peak of his physical fitness. So he will be more than well equipped than us mere mortals for being able to get into a car, a Formula One car, driving at speed around this circuit. And let's face it, of course, this is a brutal street circuit. It lays claim to being the fastest street circuit in the world. We know what it's like. We've seen the images, we've seen the pictures as just to how fast this track is. So he did enormously well to get behind the wheel of that SF24. And at the end of the day, he did deliver a decent performance, at least now in being on track. He's got a good idea as to what to expect going into qualifying and building up towards going into the race on Sunday, when, of course, he should be fully fit by then, fingers crossed, all being well for him.
Now, you mentioned there, obviously, how fast this circuit is, and something actually I was really intrigued to ask you about. And please, for those who are watching this video, please comment in the comment section what you think. Would you say that this circuit is the most dangerous modern street circuit F1 currently has?
I think we got a taste of that when we saw Logan Sargent approaching at speed Lewis Hamilton in that moment there. Superb reactions from Logan. On another occasion, he could have plowed into the back of Lewis quite easily. We know what this circuit is like. We've seen numerous incidents over the course of the 3 previous race weekends here, just how tricky and treacherous this track can be. Blind corners that have led to numerous safety cars. It would not surprise me one iota if we see yet another safety car incident, if not more than one, during Saturday's race. Does it need changing? There were suggestions after the very first event here that it should be altered. Slight tweaks were made for the race that followed very soon after in year 2. So if you remember, the inaugural race here took place at the end of one season. The second race took place at the start of another. So they did make slight alterations. There are still concerns about some of the way these corners can be taken, given their slightly blind nature. And as I say, I'm expecting plenty of incidents across the remaining 2 days of this event this year.
And of course, despite the changes that were made after the first race in 2021, we then saw Mick Schumacher have 2 massive crashes in 2022. Moving on to the final on-track conversation. I know that people watching are probably saying, talk about Red Bull, talk about Christian Horner. We're getting to it.
Maybe they're not then. Maybe they've had fully enough. Maybe they're still of Christian Horner's story, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are feeling that way.
That's how I feel. Final on-track topic. Now, we've given this team a lot of criticism over the last few weeks. Alpine, Pierre Gasly, P9. Are we seeing finally, is it just because it's such a different circuit to Bahrain, but, are Alpine potential points contenders here? Is that too big of a bold prediction too early?
I'm thinking that's coming way too early. Yeah, representative conditions in FP2 as we saw compared to FP1, compared to what we're going to see in qualifying and the race. I don't think so, Nick. I can't imagine that car will have improved to an extent that we're going to see it pushing for points across qualifying or across the race. We know that car has not been developed very well over the course of the winter. We've seen the resignations of its technical director, Matt Harmon, its head of aerodynamics, Dirk de Beer. That gives you some idea as to what happened within the technical department over the winter at Alpine. The drivers have made abundantly clear that that car is just not good enough, and it is going to require a considerable amount of work to bring it up to anywhere near a decent race car. So, in all honesty, mate, I'm genuinely not expecting that car to be anywhere near the top 10. If it is, I'll hold my hands up and say, well done, guys. I'm guessing the only way it might get close to the top 10 is if it steers clear, or as if Esteban and Pierre steer clear of trouble, and they are able to then potentially score a point that way and bring it home on the back of incidents that might occur for some of those around them.
I think it's time. Shall we do the biggest talking point of the day, which came off circuit once again and involved a certain Red Bull team principal and CEO, Christian Horner? Ian, I'm just going to let you take the floor with this one.
As you say, once again, the events off track regarding Christian have overshadowed the events on track. It emerged just before the start of the opening practice session here that the female Red Bull employee who had accused Christian of inappropriate behaviour had been suspended. It has since come to light that the reason why she was suspended was due to a degree of, or we are led to believe, shall we say, let's put it that way, that the reason why she's been suspended is due to a case of dishonesty with some of the testimony that she gave. Now, this, of course, is quite eye-opening now. We're getting a little bit more degree of insight into what's gone on. Christian was grilled during the press conference, the team principal's press conference. He faced the overwhelming majority of the questions, as you can appreciate, but didn't shed too much light on the situation regarding himself and Jos Verstappen. He's confirmed that discussions had taken place, not necessarily with Jos, but we know certainly with Max Verstappen's manager, Raymond Vermeulen. They took place in Dubai on Monday. You understood that there was a degree of clearing the air because we know that Jos's comments on the Saturday in Bahrain were quite incendiary. He said there were tensions within the team and that they were ready to explode unless Christian Horner was removed from his position. As I say, that then led to these clear the air talks with Raymond Vermeulen in Dubai. And now we've had this come to light as well with regard to this female Red Bull employee. Christian refused to shed any light on that. Quite naturally, there is still a legal process in place. I'm led to believe that the legal letters were served with regard to the investigation on Monday or Tuesday of this week. And from that point on, both sides have 5 days to address the ongoing situation, with the female Red Bull employee in particular having that period of time to then determine whether she wants to go ahead with the right of appeal, which is her right, as we well know. That was announced within the statement when Red Bull's investigation was completed and the grievance against Christian was dismissed. So there is still the short time frame, the short window now open to her to determine what course of action she wants to take. But as I say, the fact that she has been suspended just adds another degree of intrigue to what has been a quite long-running saga now. February 5, we're going back just over 4 weeks now as to when this all started and this investigation was announced. It does appear to be that we are slowly starting to draw to a close. However, if she does decide to appeal, then that's only going to drag the matter on a little while more.
4 weeks on, and this is still very much a developing story. And as soon as we know anything else, please check out racenews365.com, where we will be keeping you up to date with what's going on with what is now becoming a very long and quite serious story. Ian, we're running out of time, so very, very quickly, bold predictions for qualifying. I'm going to go first, just to get out of the way with Pierre Gasly, Q3.
We're dreaming. You're dreaming.
No, but you said the same last week with Nico Hulkenberg.
On this occasion, no,
right.
This is you dreaming. Bold. Are we looking for bold predictions?
Bold. Well, I think that's the boldest of bold. Are you going to swing?
I'm not going to be able to top that, am I? Because The bottom line is, mate, it's going to be a relatively straightforward qualifying, and we're going to see the top 5 teams occupying the top 10 grid slots without a shadow of a doubt.
And in saying that, we're going to have 5 red flags. And
But there will be that as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's going to be incidents in qualifying. Absolutely.
Good stuff. Right, Ian, get yourself back to the hotel. And obviously from myself and Ian, we will see you tomorrow to debrief qualifying. Until then, we will see you guys later. Catch you later.
Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Take care.